pleasure to be here in this cozy room today, and I'm feeling pretty uplifted being freshly sanctioned. It's good to be here with two other sanctionees, Steve McCabe, who's I think was sanctioned sometime before us, and Matthew, of course, was also sanctioned, but sadly they didn't get the spelling of your name right. No, which I think is pretty sloppy, frankly. I mean, if they're going to sanction you, they should at least get your name right.
Even worse, there's some poor innocent individual wandering around
who's got a suspiciously Italian name. So I think that this just goes to show that the regime in Tehran has no eye for detail, which is another criticism that we can properly level at it. I'm very pleased to be here as president for the British Committee for Iran Freedom, which has also been sanctioned. So as you can see, we must be doing something right. And it's a great pleasure to be here because I'm proud of what we are doing in the BCIF. I'm particularly proud of our statement, which you've seen, in support of the Iranian people. I'm very proud of our support for the uprising and the organized resistance movement in Iran, which is led by Madame Rajavi. And I'm very proud also of the efforts that are being made by this organization and others to hold the regime and its leaders to account for their brutal treatment of protesters in Iran, including the killing of so many. And you can see above me details of that. And I want also to thank many colleagues from all parties, both in the House of Commons and the House of Lords, for backing our statement, which, as Matthew said, reflects the strong support that exists here in this Parliament for the Iranian people and for their struggle to establish a free and democratic Iran. I'm sure that all of us in this room are absolutely appalled by the execution of two brave young men, both of them only 23 years old, Mohsen Shekari and Majid Reza Rahnavard, who was, by the way, also a noted athlete in Iran, brutally hanged in the most appalling manner in public from cranes in Iran. I also, like Baroness Verma, want to acknowledge the positive steps that our government has taken since the beginning of these protests. They have made formal protests several times. They have made their own sanctions against various figures in the Iranian regime, voted in favor of creating a fact-finding mission by the UN Human Rights Council to investigate the crackdown on protesters, and leading efforts in the United Nations to suspend Iran's membership of the UN's Women's Committee, which is actually up for a vote today. And I think that thanks to the efforts of this country and other countries too, it's likely that the Tehran regime will be expelled from that committee. So, ladies and gentlemen, the statement that we have presented today indicates, I think, the next steps forward for our government and also for other governments in the international community, which should be to recognize the NCRI and Mrs. Rajavi, end diplomatic relations with the regime in Tehran, begin talks with the Iranian resistance movement, and refer the appalling human rights record of the mullah's regime to the United Nations Security Council for the prosecution of its leaders. By its conduct over the last few weeks, the regime has lost what little legitimacy it retained. It's now clear that the majority of Iranians want to see an end to the religious dictatorship that has governed that country for so many years, and they are clearly prepared to make incredible sacrifices to realize those democratic aspirations. And as we've highlighted in our statement, the people of Iran have everything to gain. There is a viable democratic alternative, which is presented by Madame Rajavi and the NCRI, with the vision, principles, and I believe popular support to help the Iranian people put an end to the dictatorship, establish domestic institutions, and secure a fair and free elections in a free Iran. In other words, to gain the freedom that we in this country take for granted. And that is what is at stake here. That freedom is what the Iranian people clearly yearn for, and that is what the NCRI and Madame Rajavi are determined to deliver for them, the opportunity to shape the future and direction of their own country with a government that truly represents all the people of Iran. The Iranian resistance movement isn't in competition with other Iranians in seeking power. As Mrs. Rajavi said in her remarks at the annual Free Iran gathering in 2020, NCRI's commitment is to remain faithful to our people's sovereignty and their vote, not to seek power at any cost, but to establish freedom and justice at any cost, never to return to the dictatorships of the Shah and the mullahs. We want to establish a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Iran, as the majority of elected lawmakers in the US and Europe have pointed out. That is the sort of leadership that will secure and deliver a free and democratic Iran for the Iranian people. That's the sort of commitment that will unite the people of Iran around the common cause and contribute to the growing number of resistance units in the country to help prosecute the continuing uprising. And the sooner that our government and our international allies recognize and back the popular democratic alternative that is presented by Mrs. Rajavi, the sooner we will see a victory for the people of Iran, which will usher the entire country, and indeed, by extension, the entire Middle East, into a new era of democratic progress, stability, and peace. That is what we can look forward to, and we must continue our support for the brave people of Iran. Thank you very much.